Hello, everyone. This is Eric Pennington with the Spirit of EQ, and welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast.
Life is a journey. Spirit of EQ helps shape and guide the road ahead for individuals, leaders, teams, and organizations striving to realize their full potential through emotional intelligence. Spirit of EQ is a coaching and consulting company that assists individuals and businesses to reach their full potential by developing emotional intelligence. In business, managers and leaders recognize the value of training to develop leadership skills. What they may not realize is that those skills are far more effective when they pay attention to not only performance, but also to people. Emotional intelligence is a crucial skill because people drive performance and emotions drive people.
Today is part 2 of our episode on Under Pressure. And joining me, as always, is Jeff East with the Spirit of EQ. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Eric, and everyone out there.
So, Jeff, I still can't get Under Pressure from Queen out of my head, but that's a good thing because it's a great song.
Right.
But we're not here to rehash what we talked about in the last episode.
No.
But let's talk a little bit about circumstances. And one thing that's interesting to me about 2020 has been that many of the things that have happened, events, situations, what have you, have been totally out of our control, and they're just circumstances. They just are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had conversations with some of our clients in sessions, right, where we talk about this idea about how can we be well despite our circumstances? How can you be well even if circumstances aren't going the way that you want, you thought were going to go, you know, that were looking like they were going to go, whatever the case may be? Because one thing that's really struck me is that if I can only be at my best and be well when circumstances line up for me, I'm probably going to have a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's when the going is easy, it's easy to be doing well, and we want to do better.
Yeah. So here in the United States, depending on the state that you're in, we had a period of time where, there was a very strong call, at least as it relates to COVID-19, that we were going to flatten the curve. And once we flatten the curve, make sure the hospital's not overrun, make sure that the vulnerable are protected, what have you, that we could kind of get to some new normal, I guess if I can call it that, whatever that was going to look like. But it seems to have dragged on a bit. Mm-hmm. And I know those of you out in California are different than those of you in New York versus Ohio versus Florida, on and on and on. It still remains. It's the circumstance, Jeff. So as it relates to emotional intelligence, which I think is a very key thing to help navigate this idea of how can I be well? How can I be my best self even though around me things are not the best, right? So let's go and look at those competencies again. And I'm not going in there and there's in the sense of let's go through each one of them. But in your mind, think of one that leaps out to you that might help someone who genuinely says, I do want to be my best self despite all the circumstantial stuff.
How about intrinsic motivation?
Oh, I like that. Unwrap that a little bit more.
Intrinsic motivation is what is inside of you that's driving you, what's causing you to make the decisions or take the actions that you do. Mm-hmm. So there's intrinsic motivation, which is from yourself.
Yep.
From your background, from your experience, and then there's extrinsic motivation. That's where outside influences are making you make the decisions or take the actions that you're taking. Mm-hmm. And they could be friends, family, social media, TV, a book you read, whatever. And I think we need to get through this is to stay inside ourselves, not selfishly or anything like that, but
almost a close monitoring of how things are going, how you're thinking, what you're doing with your thinking, that kind of thing. So that's a good one. And I guess the difficulty, and I'm trying to put myself in the position in the shoes of those, who might be listening. What if all your life you've kind of been taught or, marketed to that, well, things are good when they go your way and things are bad when they don't?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
We've all kind of been taught that in one way or the other.
Yeah.
But we need to look at it with the circumstances that you're in right now. Maybe you can't do anything about those circumstances. And you have to just take it. And you being able to keep focused on who you are will help that. Don't let it change you.
Yeah. Is there a possibility that we may find a great breakthrough in a time of the misalignment between circumstances and our expectations and things of that nature?
Yeah, it could be a lot of different things. It could be, a friend says, why don't you try meditating for half an hour every day? And you go, wow, that works. And that could be part of your post-COVID life.
Yeah.
That's a breakthrough. It might help you hone some other skill. Maybe you've always wanted to cook.
Yeah.
And you've never had the time because of work and kids and,
Yeah, because you go to a point, because circumstances eventually change. I would not foresee that 2020 is going to be what the rest of our days ahead will be like.
I surely hope not.
So when things get, quote, better or more normal, as we might define it, and I was thinking about this the other day. I mentioned in a previous episode, I think it was the previous part one of this episode, was songwriting and how I had sent off these songs to this musician friend of mine in North Carolina. And he's like a lot of people. He's got more time right now, and it came across to me that, things, quote, get back to normal, and he's back at his pace from previous. Will he have time to work on a song, right? Or will he have time to meditate, as you just gave the example of? Because part of me has always been a little nervous about our country in that we forget the lessons, forget the breakthroughs that we gained. Does that make sense?
And thinking about what you just said, pay attention. We have the competency of emotional literacy.
Yep.
Pay attention to what feelings you're having when you're doing those things. How do I feel when I get out of doing meditation?
Yep.
Wow, I feel really good when I do that, and hang on to that. And, that could become a pattern now.
And I feel like a great thing that everyone out there can do, and I mean, ultimately it requires you to have a pad of paper and a pen. It's as basic as that. Write that down. And have it in a place where it's accessible, where you can go back to that and remind yourself, I felt X when I did Y.
I was relaxed and motivated.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, if you, like I said, you decide, okay, I've got time to really do some cooking. And you start making homemade meals for your family. And you go, man, they really appreciated that. I'm going to have to make time, even if it's just once a week, to do that because I felt so good. It could be anything that
gives you energy?
Yeah, it gives you energy. Some people call it juice, whatever it is. What is it that can keep you moving?
Because my motivation here, Jeff, in us talking about circumstances, even pre-COVID, I can think about in my own life where I've had those periods where it seemed like I could do no wrong and everything went my way. And then I've had those periods where I don't think I could have. I couldn't get one person to call me back, right? And I've always wanted to live the kind of life that someone could look back and go, Eric, even when things were really bad for you, you still were Eric. And even when you were doing really, really well, you were still Eric. And I think, and I may be off here, I think most people, that's what they want. They want to be able to be their best version, even in the times when it doesn't go their way, as they want to be that best version when things are going their way. And that's kind of where I'm wanting to take this, right?
Right.
For us. And looking at, certainly here in our show, through the lens of emotional intelligence.
Right.
So what do you think about this idea? Because I have some family members who really, really value control. Now, Jeff,
such an illusionary thing.
So see, and Jeff, you ruined it because I was about ready to say, and Jeff, I know you know, but that's what I'm talking about. It is. But maybe you know people in your family or network of people who they hold on to this illusionary thing called control.
Right.
So, Jeff, is there anything that we have control over in your mind?
Yeah.
Okay. What do we have control over?
We have control over how we react to things.
Okay.
If we put the work into it.
Okay. So if we've built the practice, if we've built a habit, we are given the control over how we react to whatever.
I can't control you if I want you to do something.
Right.
I can coerce you and make you do it or something like that, but I really can't control how you're going to react to a situation. I can't control how that person's driving next to me. All I can control is what I do.
Okay, Jeff, let's bring that home a little bit to something that I think will kind of illuminate what you just said. So, Jeff, you asked me whether or not I can host the show on my own in the next recording. And I go, Jeff, I just don't feel comfortable doing it alone. The show is you and me, and that's when we need to do it. So if you can't do it, we'll just have to reschedule.
Right.
What control do you have in that situation?
What I can do is say something like, okay, I understand, Eric, but I've listened to you, and I feel strongly that you can handle this one on your own. That I have no fear that it's going to go off the rails any more than when we do it together. And that I'm comfortable with that. So
that's what you can do, right? But as I know everybody out there in the audience, you realize I might be in a position where I'm totally petrified of the idea and I am not going to do it.
Okay.
Right? And then you have control over.
Okay, well, let's get with Brett, our producer, and let's see if we can find another time.
Boom. Now, that doesn't mean it was optimal for you. The circumstance of it is still kind of, because maybe you had a really good reason why you wanted me to take the load, right? But you exercised what was in your control.
Yeah, and then I can take it further. And this would be hard for me, but when we do that episode, I might pull back a little bit and let you handle more of it. And I go, see, Eric, you don't need me for this one. I mean, I love working with you, but there's going to be times when this is what it's going to be. And, so there's a lot of ways you can do that. Yeah. That's what I can control. I can't control how you're going to react to it. Yeah.
And it goes, the other examples would be, like you said, the driving thing. If somebody in front of you is going below the speed limit, there's only so much control you have over it. And quite frankly, if you take what you think is control in that situation, you may find out very quickly.
It'll get you a ride in the back of a police car, possibly.
Right. Or we don't want that. Nice $200 ticket, right?
Yes.
So I think most would probably say, yeah, I get it. We really don't have much control over things. We certainly don't have control over these large circumstances of 2020, right? And I read a quote. This has been probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This gentleman worked in the Obama administration, and he was being interviewed, and they were talking about, it seems like every time we get into that 4-year cycle or the fourth year of the reelection or the election of a president, that everything just goes super negative, off the rails, blah, blah, blah. And he said something I thought was so profound. He said, unfortunately, he believes that politics has been allowed to take a place in our soul that it was never intended to. And I remember reading that going, he just described our country, or at least a significant part of our country. And the reality is, Jeff, whether I love Joe Biden or hate Donald Trump or vice versa, the only control I have is what I do, either voting early, absentee, or on election day. That's it. So why am I getting so wound up? Why do I want to watch every single story as it eats away at my soul?
Because we need...
And I'm going to interrupt you, Jeff.
Okay.
By the way, audience, this is not a political episode.
No.
This is all by use of example, analogy.
I think sometimes we want to have validation for our feelings.
Okay.
Okay, everybody's feeling like this, so it's okay.
All right.
We might want to take some joy in some other people's failings. Is it Schadenfreude? I can't say it right. There's a German word for that, where you take joy in others' pain.
Okay.
Because if you're feeling that, then you're better than the other people.
But it's still an illusion, right? You don't have any control.
No, you don't.
Yeah, it's just you don't. So I bring that up primarily to sort of connect it to the circumstance. If we can get to a place where we can, I guess, cognitively say, you know what, there's very few things I have control over, and I got to look at my circumstances, and I got to go, what responsibility, control do I have over an event that happened in Northern California, or what happened in Southern Florida, whatever the case may be. Then maybe we can start to grapple with some of those emotions, right, that are coming at us, and those messages we're getting from our multiple sources of media that invite us to try to take control of something that we can't.
There's a word, and I like my own definition, is pragmatic, where you look at things with reality. And if you start looking at these things, understanding the reality of it, then you might start understanding that I really can't do anything about that other than how I react to it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can have anything to do with, and that's the reality of these situations, that no matter how much I dislike this candidate or that candidate, I'm really not going to change it. I'm not going to, if you like one candidate and I like the other, I'm probably not going to be able to change you.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, it's sort of the around if what I'm doing with what I'm doing, how is it making my life better?
Right.
So how does my life get better if I argue with you about politics? How does my life get better if I debate you about whether we should wear masks or not wear masks? What is the benefit?
It's a form, I think, of trying to exert control.
Yeah.
Which, if you and I are having a discussion, a civil discussion about a political candidate, where I state, well, I think this is the reason, and then you state it, and we have a dialogue. I'm not trying to control you. You're not trying to control me. We're just sharing. That's different than what you're talking about. I'm not trying to control. I'm just informing you.
Yeah.
And you're doing the same with me. But unfortunately, that's a lost art now.
Yeah.
It's the same with the mask, or I can remember all the debates about motorcycle helmets and seat belts and all these things. You want to win.
So the rubber meets the road in the reality of, all right, I get it, Eric and Jeff, that I don't have any control. I get it. I can't change all the circumstances. So what do I do? So how am I supposed to be healthy in that regard? Because I get it. I know. I don't. What's my option? What are my go-tos now?
Well, if we're talking about the competencies that we use in 6 seconds practice, things like your noble goal. That's kind of the North Star, the thing that keeps you focused. And then to help you stay focused on that North Star is how you're going to navigate these emotions, which is another one of the competencies. How am I going to get through this? My annoying neighbor that has 75 signs in their front yard, and you can't see the back of the car for the bumper stickers, and they want to talk to you every time you're out mowing the yard. Or whatever it is. How am I going to navigate that?
Yeah.
How am I going to keep focused on what is really important to me?
Because you make a great point, and it goes even beyond that annoying neighbor, right? It's this idea about understanding or being on the journey to understand, why are you here? What is your noble goal? And I think when you find that, and the process, the journey to finding it, it does shorten your list a bit. You start to understand that there are certain things that are worth, and there's certain things that are not worth. And I know for me, it also has a form of accountability. Because if my noble goal is something that I talk about, that I've lived out, is consistent, then I got to be very careful in going down rabbit holes that would compromise that.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, Jeff, because I've got thousands and thousands of people who are just waiting to see what I do next. But if I don't show up with my best self to our clients, to our audience here, if I just mail it in because I'm so preoccupied with things that I have no control over, is it really going to be its best?
No, and I think it's even more important internally when you're following that noble goal. When you can do that and not worry about how you're coming across, but you're focusing on being that best self, following what is important to you, the rest of the stuff will kind of fall into place.
Yeah. So you think of any other competencies that someone might want to explore as it relates to dealing with, circumstances?
Recognizing patterns.
Okay.
To pay attention to, if this happens, how do I normally react? Or do I normally respond, which is different. Reaction is unthinking, knee-jerk, you use whatever, but a response is thought out.
Yeah.
We talk about the 6 seconds to get your brain back under control. It could be as short as the 6 seconds. It could be a week or a month for your response. So focusing on that, am I getting the result that I want with this pattern?
Yeah.
And if it's a good pattern, man, carve it in stone. Make sure that you pay attention to it.
Yeah.
If it's a pattern that's not getting you the kind of result you want, then pay attention to it and be aware when you're falling into it.
Right. Because that's the pathway for making change, right? Where you understand that maybe this pattern is not serving me well.
No.
And therefore I got to figure out maybe what's the next one. I would just also point out to the audience that, again, we mentioned it in the part 1 of this episode, is that you're going to face some resistance in the beginning if you haven't been practicing this. The goal is to get to a place where you have a practice, and I know I'm kind of giving mixed definitions there. There's practice as in activity and what you do, and practice as in I have a practice of meditation. I have a practice of, fill in the blank. And the idea is you want to get this to the point of where you're proactively going to these competencies and realizing that I have tools that, as a human being, I've been given to be able to do what we're talking about here. You won't be perfect, because no one is, but you more than likely, and there's research around it, Jeff, and we've seen it. The most successful people and success is defined by the individual, not by me, not by spirit of EQ. But typically, most successful people have higher levels of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And they didn't get there by accident. It wasn't a gift from above. It wasn't, it wasn't because your family was from X, or your dad was a senator, or your mom was a judge. This is the work that we all can do, and when we do, because EQ is learnable. So those are some good competencies. I also would like to kind of throw out a bit of a warning, because I get it. There's some people that maybe they won't stick to it, and my hope is always, because I'm optimism is where I lean in virtually every situation, that maybe they'll see the importance of it. Not again because Spirit of EQ has a podcast and says that you should do it, but just because it will make your life better. It's proven. We've got that. Science will prove it too. The danger of waiting. The danger of, yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I will. That sounds like a good idea. Check back with me. I would hope that everybody out there would embrace what I call optimistic urgency. Not because you're going to go morbid and think, oh, today could be the last day. Or, I've heard this multiple times in this wacky 2020. Well, what if I get COVID-19? Okay. But having optimistic urgency that we don't know how much time we have. And we should not take that for granted. That we should put our energy into doing all that we can. I've always found it fascinating, Jeff, that in America, we will put all kinds of work, all kinds of time and effort into career. But what gets left in the dust is our mental, spiritual, emotional, physical health. And I know some folks, it's a retirement game, right? If I'm going to get, once I get over there, Jeff, then I'm going to start exercising. Then I'm going to pay attention to the kids. Then I'm going to.
And it's too late.
Because nobody lives on hold, man.
No. And I think if somebody is wanting to get involved with this, to start working on it, start small.
Yes.
Let's say a good place to start would be maybe the emotional literacy. Simple. At the end of the day, think back about your day. You don't have to spend a lot of time. Man, when Eric did this, I felt that.
Yeah.
Just simple. Now you're starting to become aware of the emotions, and then you can move on. Or if recognizing patterns is one you want to look at, just pay attention to it. It's not some huge amount of time, things like that. But just start paying attention.
Well, the beauty of what you described there too, Jeff, is that by starting small, you can build your pace that's right for you.
It's easier to have some success when you start small.
Yeah, and the resources that we have available to folks through our multiple channels, whether it be social media or website, obviously the podcast, there's all kinds of things you can do. And I just want to stress to you, don't put it off, because many people have been caught being very blunt about it. They're exposed by time. And ladies and gentlemen, time is undefeated.
I don't know if this is the right place to mention this, but, we've been talking a lot about 2020.
Yes.
And, the weird circumstances that we're dealing with now. This is not just for 2020.
Thank you. Exactly, Jeff. It's for 2021. It's for 2022. If we're so fortunate to see it, yeah. So. That's very important to say. Jeff, it was great seeing you again today, and I really enjoyed this two-parter, our first. Hopefully, audience, you guys got a lot out of it, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you much.
Hi, everyone. This is Eric Pennington with the Spirit of EQ. I'm not introducing a new episode today. I'm here to tell you some things that might help you. Jeff, you're with me as always. So
yes.
How do people get in touch with us?
Well, the best way is just send us an email at info@spiritofeq.com.
That's awesome. Jeff, I was also thinking about reviews, and I'm notoriously bad at asking for them, so reviews on all of the platforms wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
You think that'd be good?
I think that would be great because, one, that will help us learn how to make better ones. And it's always good for us.
So we're not the perfect podcast hosts?
We're close.
Okay, all right. But
not,
still,
not totally
we want
perfect.
your feedback. We want your feedback.
But it also might let us know a new subject. Hey, we need to dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Cool. We really appreciate that. As always, too, there is social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. Those also have mechanisms or options for you to be able to leave a comment, a like, or those kind of things. Just want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with us. Right, Jeff?
Right. We appreciate you all.
Thank you.